Imagine a world ravaged by millennia of strife, where warlords and tyrants rule over scattered fiefdoms. Techno-barbarians wield devastating weaponry left over from humanity's golden age, now barely understood. Mutants and psychers roam the wastelands, feared and persecuted in equal measure. Amidst this chaos, a figure emerges, a being of immense power and unparalleled vision. Known only as the Emperor of Mankind, this enigmatic leader embarks on a crusade to reunite the warring nations of Terra under a single banner. His goal, to reclaim humanity's birthright among the stars. The Unification Wars were not merely a military campaign, but a battle for the very soul of humanity. Ancient traditions clashed with a new imperial doctrine. Technological marvels thought lost forever were unearthed and repurposed. Entire cultures were subsumed or eradicated in the name of progress. As we delve into this pivotal chapter of Warhammer 40k lore, we'll explore the key players, epic battles, and world-shaping decisions that defined the Unification Wars. We'll witness the birth of institutions that would endure for millennia: the Imperial Army, the Adeptus Terra, and most crucially, the Space Marine Legions. The echoes of these wars reverberate through the chambers of Imperial history, shaping policies and beliefs 10,000 years hence. To understand the Imperium of man in the 41st millennium, one must first grasp the crucible in which it was forged. Prepare to journey back to a time of legends, when demigods walked among men and the fate of our species hung in the balance. This is the story of how humanity clawed its way back from the brink of extinction, united under the banner of the double-headed eagle. Welcome to the Unification Wars. The Unification Wars serve as the cornerstone of the Imperium's founding mythology. This conflict represents more than a mere historical footnote. It's the genesis of humanity's galactic dominion and the Emperor's ascension to godhood in the eyes of trillions. To grasp the war's significance, one must understand the desolate state of Terra during the Age of Strife. Mankind had fallen from the heights of the Dark Age of technology, a period of unparalleled scientific advancement and expansion. Warp storms isolated human colonies, severing interstellar travel and communication. On Earth, civilization crumbled as old grudges reignited and new horrors emerged. Techno-barbarians, wielding fragments of forgotten lore, carved out brutal empires. Psychers, whose powers manifested unpredictably, became both revered prophets and reviled witches. Gene cults twisted the human form in pursuit of adaptation to a toxic world. Artificial intelligences, once servants, rebelled against their masters in the catastrophic revolt of the Men of Iron. Amidst this backdrop of devastation, the Emperor's Unification campaign takes on near-mythical proportions. His goal wasn't merely to conquer, but to salvage humanity's lost knowledge and rekindle the flame of progress. The Unification Wars represented a pivotal moment. Would mankind succumb to infighting and devolve further, or unite and reclaim its destiny among the stars? This conflict laid the groundwork for numerous imperial institutions. The Thunder Warriors, prototype super soldiers, paved the way for the Adeptus Astartes. The Adeptus Terra's bureaucratic foundations were established to govern the nascent Imperium. Even the seeds of the imperial cult, despite the Emperor's wishes, were sown during this time of legend and miracle. Moreover, the Unification Wars set precedents for how the Imperium would handle divergent human cultures and technology. Ancient traditions were often supplanted by imperial truth, while potentially dangerous technologies were either destroyed or sequestered by organizations like the Mechanicum of Mars. The conflict's resolution marked the end of Terra's isolation and the beginning of mankind's resurgence. With Earth unified, the Emperor could turn his gaze to the stars, initiating the Great Crusade to reconnect lost human worlds and forge an empire spanning the galaxy. Understanding the Unification Wars is crucial for comprehending the Imperium's xenophobia, its complex relationship with technology, and its ruthless pursuit of unity at all costs. The scars left by this conflict shaped Imperial doctrine for millennia to come. In the grand tapestry of Warhammer 40,000 lore, the Unification Wars represent the moment humanity stood at a crossroads. The choices made during this tumultuous period echo through the chambers of Imperial history, influencing everything from military strategy to religious doctrine in the grim darkness of the far future. As we delve deeper into the specific events and personalities of the Unification Wars, keep in mind the monumental stakes. This wasn't just a war for territory or resources, but a battle for humanity's very future. The outcome would determine whether our species would fade into obscurity on a dying world or rise to claim dominion over the stars themselves. Long before the Emperor's thunderous conquest, Terra basked in the radiance of a golden era. Humanity's reach extended across the stars, propelled by wondrous technologies and unparalleled mastery over the material realm. Stellar empires flourished, and mankind seemed destined for eternal dominion over the cosmos. Yet, this age of marvels teetered on a precipice. The emergence of psychers, humans gifted with otherworldly powers, heralded both promise and peril. As their numbers swelled, so too did the warp's influence on reality. Storms of psychic energy tore through the fabric of space, severing vital warp routes and isolating countless human worlds. Terra, once the jewel of human civilization, descended into chaos. The carefully constructed frameworks of global governance crumbled, giving way to feudal states ruled by techno-barbarians. These warlords, wielding remnants of once mighty technologies, waged ceaseless wars for dwindling resources and fading glory. Amidst the turmoil, gene cults rose to prominence. These secretive organizations sought to reshape humanity through radical genetic manipulation, believing evolution held the key to survival in a hostile universe. Their creations ranged from the sublime to the monstrous, further fracturing the human species. The men of iron, artificial intelligences created to serve, turned against their masters. This Silicon rebellion laid waste to entire continents, erasing millennia of progress in a hail of atomics and logic scourges. In the aftermath, fear and suspicion of advanced technology became deeply ingrained in the collective psyche of Terra's survivors. Climate catastrophes, triggered by unchecked industrial expansion and devastating wars, reshaped Terra's geography. Once verdant continents withered into toxic wastelands. Gleaming metropolises sank beneath rising oceans or were buried under mountains of rubble. The planet's population, once numbering in the hundreds of billions, plummeted as famine and disease ran rampant. In this crucible of hardship, new religions and ideologies sprouted like weeds in cracked concrete. Some preached salvation through technological regression, while others promised transcendence through mutation or cybernetic augmentation. The old faiths of Terra fractured and reformed, each claiming divine mandate to guide humanity through the darkness. Amid the ruins of fallen civilizations, scattered bands of survivors clung to fragments of ancient lore. Techno-priests guarded jealously hoarded knowledge, parlaying their secrets into positions of power within the emergent feudal order. Warrior societies formed around the worship of god machines, colossal war engines slumbering in hidden vaults. The warp's malign influence grew stronger with each passing century. Demonic incursions, once rare and isolated, became increasingly common. Entire regions fell to madness and mutation, ruled by cackling demon princes or gibbering flesh horrors that had once been human. The thin veil between reality and the Imperium frayed, threatening to tear asunder at any moment. It was into this maelstrom of conflict and despair that the Emperor emerged. His origins shrouded in mystery, this towering figure of superhuman might and intellect began to gather followers in the region once known as Central Asia. Armed with unparalleled psychic abilities and a vision of humanity restored, the Emperor set about the monumental task of reunifying Terra. The early victories of the Emperor's forces were dismissed by many as yet another warlord's conquest. Yet as his influence spread and the miraculous nature of his powers became evident, whispers of hope began to circulate. Could this be the savior long prophesied by 1,000 divergent creeds? As the stage was set for the Unification Wars, Terra stood at the nadir of human civilization. The planet writhed in the throes of a dark age that had endured for millennia. Yet in the ashes of the old world, the seeds of a new order were about to take root, an order that would reshape not just Terra, but the entire galaxy in its image. The Emperor's campaign ignited with a swift conquest of the Indonesic bloc, a techno-barbarian state infamous for its inhuman experiments. This victory showcased the might of the Thunder Warriors, genetically enhanced soldiers who would spearhead many early battles. Their savage efficiency sent shockwaves through Terra's fragmented nations, heralding a new era of warfare. Subsequent clashes saw the Emperor's forces engage the Pan-Pacific Empire, a vast confederacy spanning what was once East Asia and the Americas. This protracted conflict tested the limits of the fledgling Imperium, requiring not just military prowess, but also diplomatic finesse to sway key factions within the Empire to the Emperor's cause. A pivotal moment came with the assault on the Templars of the Mournival, a powerful tech cult entrenched in the irradiated wastes of old Europe. The battle culminated in the Emperor personally confronting the cult's leader, a cyborg abomination who claimed godhood. Their duel, witnessed by thousands, ended with the Emperor shattering both the false god and the faith built around it. The siege of marked a turning point in the wars. This ancient city-state, home to some of the oldest continuous human settlements, had become a stronghold of gene cults and mutant hierarchies. The Emperor's forces laid siege for years, finally breaching its walls through a combination of technological superiority and psychic might. The fall of resonated across Terra, demonstrating that no power, no matter how entrenched, could withstand the Imperium's advance. In the Achaemenid region, the Emperor faced one of his most formidable opponents, the Ethnarch. This mysterious figure commanded legions of psychic warriors and claimed to be the true path to human evolution. The campaign against the Ethnarch's forces was marked by mind-bending psychic battles that reshaped the very landscape. The Emperor's final confrontation with the Ethnarch remains shrouded in secrecy, but its aftermath saw a surge in the recruitment of psychically gifted individuals into the Imperial fold. The war took a dramatic turn with the Proximan betrayal. A coalition of nations that had initially pledged allegiance to the Emperor revealed their treachery, launching a coordinated attack that nearly split the Imperial forces. This crisis led to the creation of the Officio Assassinorum, as the Emperor recognized the need for more subtle instruments of war. As the Imperium's borders expanded, it encountered the Nordic Composite, a loose alliance of warrior clans renowned for their naval prowess. Rather than a direct confrontation, the Emperor chose a path of gradual integration, showcasing the Imperium's adaptability. Over time, many Nordic clans swore fealty, their fleets becoming the backbone of what would eventually evolve into the Imperial Navy. The Battle of Mount Ararat stands out as a testament to the Emperor's strategic genius. Facing a defensive line thought impregnable, Imperial forces executed a daring drop-pod assault, deploying prototype Space Marines alongside the Thunder Warriors for the first time in recorded history. This combined arms approach overwhelmed the defenders, setting a new standard for Imperial military doctrine. In the arid expanses of the Egypts, the Emperor's legions clashed with the Sethra Dominion, a realm ruled by beings who had used archaeotech to achieve a twisted form of immortality. The campaign culminated in the Hollow Victory, where the Dominion's rulers were defeated but at a terrible cost, as the region's vast archives of ancient knowledge were lost in the conflagration. The Unification Wars reached a crescendo with the assault on Antarcticus, the last major holdout against Imperial rule. This frozen fortress, defended by an alliance of the most powerful remaining techno-barbarians, represented the final obstacle to global unification. The battle raged for months, with Imperial forces deploying experimental weapons that would later be outlawed. The fall of Antarcticus marked the de facto end of the Unification Wars, though pockets of resistance would persist for years. In the war's aftermath, the Emperor initiated the Great Purge, a systematic eradication of elements deemed incompatible with his vision for humanity. This included the destruction of religious institutions, the suppression of certain technologies, and tragically the culling of the Thunder Warriors, whose instability made them a liability in the New Order. The culmination of the Unification Wars saw the Emperor standing triumphant atop the ruins of the Old World. As he raised the banner of the Aquila over a united Terra, he set his sights on an even grander ambition: the reconquest of the stars and the forging of a galactic empire that would stand for eternity. The Unification Wars represent a pivotal crucible in which the Imperium's core tenets were forged. At its heart, this conflict embodies the tension between unity and diversity that would come to define the Imperium's approach to governance. Examining the Emperor's tactics reveals a multifaceted strategy. Where possible, he sought to incorporate existing power structures into the Imperial framework, co-opting rather than destroying. This pragmatic approach allowed for faster integration of conquered territories and preserved valuable knowledge and resources. However, it also meant absorbing some of the very elements the Emperor sought to eliminate, planting seeds of future conflict. The role of technology in the wars cannot be overstated. The Emperor's forces wielded weapons and tools far beyond the understanding of most techno-barbarian states. This technological edge often proved decisive, yet it also reinforced the mystification of technology that would later calcify into the dogma of the Adeptus Mechanicus. The fine line between revering and fearing technology became increasingly blurred as the wars progressed. Psychic abilities played a crucial part in the Emperor's ascendancy. His own immense psychic power served as both a weapon and a symbol, inspiring awe and terror in equal measure. The conflicts with other Psyker-led factions, particularly the Ethnarch, highlighted the potential and peril of these abilities. This duality would later manifest in the Imperium's complex relationship with Psykers, seen as both vital assets and potential threats. The creation and deployment of genetically enhanced warriors marked a turning point in human evolution. The Thunder Warriors, and later the Space Marines, represented a deliberate step away from baseline humanity. This decision to artificially advance human potential stands in stark contrast to the Emperor's opposition to mutation and gene cults. It raises profound questions about the nature of humanity and the lengths deemed acceptable in pursuit of species survival. Ideological warfare formed a key component of the Unification campaign. The imperial truth, with its secular rationalist foundation, was as much a weapon as any bolter or power sword. By systematically dismantling old belief systems and replacing them with a new, unified worldview, the Emperor sought to reshape the human psyche itself. This crusade against superstition, however, paradoxically laid the groundwork for the Emperor's own deification in later millennia. The assimilation of diverse cultures under the imperial banner was not without cost. Many unique traditions, languages, and ways of life were lost in the drive for unity. This homogenization, while practically advantageous for governance, stripped humanity of much of its cultural richness. The long-term consequences of this loss would reverberate through imperial history, manifesting in countless worlds seeking to reclaim or reinvent their heritage. Economic factors played a subtle but crucial role in the wars. The Emperor's ability to restore infrastructure and establish stable supply lines often proved as persuasive as military might. Populations weary of scarcity and hardship flocked to the imperial cause, drawn by promises of plenty and progress. This economic revival, however, also centralized power in ways that would eventually calcify into the rigid, feudal structure of the later Imperium. The treatment of abhumans and mutants during this period set precedents that would define imperial policy for millennia. While some stable abhuman strains were tolerated and even incorporated into the imperial war machine, others were ruthlessly purged. This binary approach to human diversity would later contribute to countless conflicts and rebellions across the galaxy. Leadership dynamics within the nascent Imperium offer insight into its future structure. The Emperor's reliance on genetically enhanced warriors and psychically gifted individuals established a clear hierarchy based on capability rather than birth or wealth. This meritocratic aspect, however, coexisted uneasily with the Emperor's own supreme authority, a contradiction that would eventually contribute to the Horus heresy. The Unification Wars also marked humanity's first steps towards reclaiming its lost stellar empire. The focus on consolidating Terra as a base for future expansion influenced decisions throughout the conflict. Resources were allocated not just for immediate victory, but with an eye towards the looming Great Crusade. This forward-thinking approach laid the groundwork for humanity's rapid expansion, but also stretched resources thin, creating vulnerabilities. Ultimately, the Unification Wars represent more than just a military campaign. They were a crucible in which the very nature of human civilization was reforged. The choices made during this turbulent period, the balance struck between unity and diversity, technology and superstition, progress and tradition, would shape the Imperium's character for millennia to come. In the grim darkness of the far future, the echoes of these ancient conflicts continue to resound, influencing the fate of trillions across the galaxy. The Emperor's unification forces stood as the vanguard of a new era. At their core were the Thunder Warriors, primordial space marines whose savage might laid waste to opposing armies. These gene-enhanced soldiers, though unstable, proved pivotal in early conquests. Supporting them, the Emperor's mortal armies comprised loyal techno-barbarians, reformed cultists, and idealistic volunteers drawn to the promise of a united humanity. Behind the scenes, the shadowy Sigillite Order worked tirelessly. Led by Malkador, these secretive operatives gathered intelligence, conducted sabotage, and swayed potential allies through subtle manipulation. Their unseen efforts often proved as crucial as any battlefield victory. Opposing the Imperial advance, the Pan-Pacific Empire represented one of the most formidable adversaries. This vast confederation boasted a fleet of submersible cities, allowing them to evade direct assault. Their forces specialized in aquatic warfare, deploying genetically modified marine soldiers and unleashing tsunamis as weapons. The Indonesic bloc, while swiftly conquered, left an indelible mark on the wars. Their mastery of biological warfare and human augmentation posed unique challenges. Even after defeat, their scientific legacy lingered, influencing imperial attitudes towards genetic manipulation for generations. High in the Himalayan mountains, the unspeakable king ruled a realm of nightmares. This enigmatic tyrant commanded legions of mutants and warp-twisted monstrosities. Imperial forces found themselves battling not just flesh and blood, but the very fabric of reality as it warped around the king's domain. The Pan-Pacific Empire, spanning what was once the Americas, fielded armies of cyborg warriors. These chrome-clad legions, armed with devastating energy weapons, proved remarkably resilient. Their fall came not through outright defeat, but a cascading series of system failures as ancient AI cores succumbed to scrap code plagues. Across the irradiated wastes of old Europa, the cult Mechanicus temple states stood as bastions of technological heresy. Each temple guarded jealously hoarded archaeotech, unleashing long-forgotten weapons against Imperial forces. The war against these enclaves was as much about securing knowledge as it was territorial conquest. The Nordic Composite, a loose alliance of warrior clans, initially resisted Imperial rule through guerrilla tactics. Their mastery of Arctic warfare and naval combat forced the Emperor to adapt his strategies. Many clans eventually swore fealty, their fleets becoming the nucleus of the future Imperial Navy. In the arid expanses of Ursh, the Ethnarch's psychic empire posed a unique threat. Here, battles were fought not just with steel and fire, but with the power of the mind. The Ethnarch's psyker armies clashed with the Emperor's own psychic adepts in reality-bending confrontations that left entire regions uninhabitable. The Terra clan, guardians of ancient fusion technologies, initially stood neutral. Their vast power generation facilities made them a tempting target, yet also a valuable potential ally. The Emperor's diplomatic overtures to this techno-mercantile oligarchy showcased the multifaceted nature of the Unification campaign. Lurking in the depths of Terra's oceans, the Leviathan Enclave remained a mysterious faction throughout the wars. These aquatic post-humans, more at home in the crushing depths than on land, raided coastal settlements with impunity. Their eventual fate remains a subject of speculation among Imperial scholars. The Selenar gene cults of Luna, while not directly involved in the Terran conflict, played a crucial role. Their unparalleled mastery of genetics made them both a target for conquest and a valuable asset. The eventual Imperial annexation of Luna marked a turning point, providing the Emperor with the means to create the Primarchs. Across Terra, various ecclesiarchy states clung to ancient religious doctrines. These theocratic regimes, each claiming divine mandate, fiercely resisted the Emperor's secular crusade. The wars against these faith-based nations were often the most bitter, as they fought not just for territory, but for the very souls of their followers. The Cogboy Collective, a loose network of tech scavengers and inventors, found themselves torn between factions. While not a unified force, their ability to repair and repurpose ancient technology made them valuable allies or dangerous foes. Many eventually found a place within the Mechanicum, their pragmatic approach balancing out religious dogma. In the southern reaches, the Antarctic Nebulae Coalition deployed weapons that manipulated weather patterns. Their ice fortresses, shrouded in perpetual storms, stood as the last major holdout against Imperial rule. The eventual fall of Antarcticus marked the de facto end of organized resistance on Terra. As the wars progressed, a new faction emerged from within the Imperial ranks. The Proto-Astartes legions, forerunners of the Space Marines, gradually replaced the Thunder Warriors. These more stable gene-enhanced soldiers represented the future of Imperial military might, their creation marking a new phase in the Emperor's grand plan. Each of these factions, whether ultimately absorbed into the Imperium or annihilated, left its mark on the emerging Imperial culture. The diversity of adversaries faced during the Unification Wars shaped the Imperium's military doctrine, technological development, and philosophical outlook for millennia to come. In victory and defeat, these myriad forces forged the Crucible from which the Imperium of Man would arise, ready to reclaim the stars. The final phase of the Unification Wars reached its zenith with a series of decisive campaigns that would reshape Terra forever. As the Emperor's forces closed in on the last bastions of resistance, the conflict intensified, with both sides unleashing their most potent weapons and desperate strategies. Antarcticus, the frozen southern continent, stood as the last major stronghold against Imperial rule. Its ice fortresses, powered by archaeotech reactors, had repelled countless assaults. The Emperor, recognizing the need for a swift end to the war, personally led the final offensive. Imperial dropships pierced the perpetual storm surrounding the continent, deploying legions of Proto-Astartes onto the icy battlefield. The Battle of the Hollow Mountains saw Imperial forces delve deep into Antarcticus's subterranean network. Here, amid caverns of ancient machinery, they confronted the continent's defenders in a claustrophobic nightmare of close-quarters combat. Melta-weapons carved tunnels through ice and rock, while energy shields flickered in the eerie glow of bioluminescent fungi. Above ground, Mechanicum Titan legions strode across glaciers, their massive feet cracking the ice with each step. They traded apocalyptic fire with Antarctican siege engines, colossal walkers that could manipulate the very weather. The skies above this battlefield roiled with unnatural storms, lightning strikes vaporizing whole squads in an instant. As the battle raged, a team of Imperial psychers, led by Malcador the Sigillite, engaged in a shadow war against Antarcticus's Council of Ice Witches. This psychic duel, fought across both physical and immaterial planes, threatened to tear reality asunder. Vortexes of warp energy erupted across the battlefield, swallowing combatants from both sides. The turning point came when Imperial forces breached the Cronus Vault, an ancient facility housing technology from the Dark Age. The Emperor himself confronted the Antarctican Hierophant, a being of flesh and machine that claimed to be the avatar of Old Night. Their duel shook the foundations of the continent, culminating in a psychic explosion that shattered Antarcticus's psychic defenses. With their leadership in disarray, the remaining Antarctican forces fought on in isolated pockets. The Proto-Astartes, demonstrating their superiority over the Thunder Warriors, systematically eliminated these holdouts. As the last resistance crumbled, the Emperor raised the Aquila standard atop Mount Erebus, symbolically marking the end of the Unification Wars. In the aftermath, the Emperor initiated the Great Purge. This controversial campaign saw the systematic elimination of elements deemed incompatible with his vision for humanity. Religious institutions were dismantled, their temples repurposed or destroyed. Certain technologies, judged too dangerous or unpredictable, were outlawed and their knowledge sealed away. Perhaps most tragically, the Thunder Warriors, the very soldiers who had spearheaded the Emperor's early victories, were deemed obsolete. In a series of last stands against supposed enemy holdouts, these gene-enhanced warriors were deliberately sacrificed, their bodies and records purged from Imperial history. The Selenar gene cults of Luna, having witnessed Terra's fall, attempted to assert their independence. The Emperor, unwilling to tolerate any challenge to his newfound authority, launched a lightning assault on the moon. This brief but brutal conflict ended with Luna's submission and the absorption of its vital gene forges into the Imperial war machine. With Terra and Luna secured, the Emperor turned his gaze to Mars. Rather than risk another protracted conflict, he opted for diplomacy. The Treaty of Olympus Mons formalized an alliance between Terra and the Mechanicum, laying the foundation for the Adeptus Mechanicus. This pact granted the Emperor access to Mars's vast technological resources, crucial for his next grand ambition. In the war's closing days, the Emperor gathered his most trusted advisors atop the Himalaysian mountains. There, amid the thin air and treacherous peaks, he outlined his vision for humanity's future. The Great Crusade, a monumental effort to reunite the scattered human worlds across the galaxy, would be the Imperium's next great endeavor. Work began immediately on the infrastructures needed to support this interstellar reconquest. The orbital shipyards of Saturn's rings were reactivated, beginning construction on the vast fleets that would carry humanity back to the stars. On Terra, gene labs worked tirelessly to perfect the Astartes project, creating the transhuman warriors who would serve as the Emperor's shock troops. As preparations for the Great Crusade accelerated, the Emperor retreated to his private sanctum beneath the Imperial Palace. Here, in utmost secrecy, he initiated his most ambitious and controversial project, the creation of the Primarchs. These 20 superhuman beings, designed to be the pinnacle of human evolution, would lead his legions across the galaxy. The Unification Wars had forged Terra into the throne world of a nascent galactic empire. From the ashes of Old Night, a new Imperium had risen, poised to reclaim humanity's birthright among the stars. As the first expeditionary fleets prepared to launch, few could have imagined the triumphs and tragedies that awaited them in the vast, uncaring void of space. Yet even in this moment of triumph, seeds of future conflict had been sown. The centralization of power, the suppression of diverse cultures and beliefs, and the creation of transhuman warriors all carried unforeseen consequences. The Imperium, born in the fires of unification, would face challenges that would test the very foundations laid during these turbulent years on ancient Terra. Terra, once a patchwork of warring states, emerged from the crucible of unification as the throne world of a nascent stellar empire. The planet's scarred surface bore witness to the monumental changes wrought by the Emperor's conquest. Sprawling hive cities rose from the ashes of ancient battlefields, while vast industrial complexes churned out the material needed for the impending Great Crusade. The Emperor's victory ushered in an era of relative stability unseen for millennia. Trade routes, long severed by constant warfare, reopened. This economic revival saw the gradual restoration of Terra's depleted resources, though the planet would never regain its former verdant state. The establishment of a unified currency and legal system further cemented the bonds between formerly disparate regions. Technologically, the Unification Wars sparked a renaissance of sorts. The amalgamation of knowledge from various techno-barbarian states, combined with recovered STC fragments, accelerated scientific progress. However, this advancement came with a caveat. The Emperor's edicts strictly controlled technological development, setting the stage for the Imperium's future stagnation. Culturally, the wars left an indelible mark on Terran society. The imperial truth, promulgated as the official state philosophy, sought to eradicate superstition and religion. This secular crusade reshaped societal norms, though it would ultimately fail to extinguish humanity's need for faith. The suppression of diverse cultural identities in favor of a monolithic imperial culture sowed seeds of resentment that would sprout in later millennia. Militarily, the conclusion of the wars saw a significant shift in doctrine. The Thunder Warriors, despite their crucial role in the early stages, were deemed too unstable for the Emperor's future plans. Their mysterious disappearance paved the way for the Adeptus Astartes, the Space Marines, genetically enhanced super soldiers designed for the rigors of galactic conquest. The Mechanicum's integration into the Imperium via the Treaty of Mars proved a double-edged sword. While it provided the Emperor with the industrial might needed for his ambitions, it also enshrined the Mechanicum's autonomy and religious practices, contradicting the secular ideals of the imperial truth. This uneasy alliance would shape imperial technological development for millennia to come. Politically, the Unification Wars gave birth to the sprawling imperial bureaucracy. The Adeptus Terra, established to govern the newly unified world, laid the groundwork for what would become a galaxy-spanning administrative apparatus. This centralization of power, while efficient in the short term, set dangerous precedents for corruption and inefficiency. The wars also saw the formation of organizations that would become pillars of imperial rule. The Officio Assassinorum emerged from the shadows, its agents having played a crucial role in destabilizing enemy regimes. The Adeptus Astra Telepathica was founded to manage the Imperium's psychic population, a response to the dangers posed by uncontrolled psychers during the conflict. Ecologically, Terra bore the scars of total war. Vast swaths of land, rendered uninhabitable by chemical and radiological weapons, were sealed off. The planet's atmosphere, already damaged by millennia of industrial excess, further deteriorated. This environmental catastrophe necessitated the development of hive cities, vast enclosed urban sprawls that would become the template for human habitation across the galaxy. Genetically, the human population of Terra underwent significant changes. The elimination of many mutant strains and gene cults homogenized the gene pool to an extent. Conversely, the development of Space Marines and later the Primarch Project represented a new branch of human evolution, one directed by the Emperor's vision rather than natural selection. Psychically, the wars had profound implications. The Emperor's efforts to control and harness psychic potential led to the creation of the Astronomicon, a psychic beacon that would guide Imperial ships through the warp. However, the suppression of many psychic traditions and the centralization of psychic training under Imperial control left humanity ill-prepared for the psychic awakening that would occur in later millennia. Astronomically, the unification of Terra allowed for the re-establishment of lunar colonies and the reactivation of Martian forges. This triad, Terra, Luna, and Mars, formed the core of what would become the Sol System's formidable defenses. The Jovian shipyards, recommissioned and expanded, began construction of the vast fleets that would carry humanity back to the stars. Philosophically, the Unification Wars cemented the idea of human exceptionalism that would characterize the Imperium. The Emperor's victory over myriad foes, including those wielding arcane technologies and warp-based powers, instilled a sense of manifest destiny in the nascent Imperium. This belief in human supremacy would fuel the xenophobia that became a hallmark of Imperial ideology. Ultimately, the Unification Wars transformed not just Terra, but the very nature of human civilization. The Imperium that emerged from this crucible was poised to reclaim humanity's lost stellar empire. Yet the methods employed to achieve this unity, the centralization of power, the suppression of diversity, the creation of transhuman warriors, carried within them the seeds of future conflicts. As the Great Crusade dawned, the legacy of the Unification Wars would echo across the galaxy, shaping the destiny of countless worlds in the millennia to come. The Unification Wars cast long shadows across the tapestry of Imperial history, their influence reverberating through subsequent millennia. The Emperor's conquest of Terra set in motion a chain of events that would reshape the galaxy and the characters who inhabited it. For the Primarch, the Emperor's gene-forged sons, the wars formed a distant but crucial backdrop. Though scattered across the stars by forces unknown, these demigods were indelibly shaped by the Terran Crucible that birthed them. Robuta Guilliman's talent for statecraft echoed the logistical triumphs of the Unification, while Angron's rage mirrored the brutality of the Thunder Warriors' final battles. The Adeptus Mechanicus, born from the alliance with Mars, found its identity forever altered. Forced to reconcile their faith in the Omnissiah with the Emperor's secular vision, the Tech priests developed a dualistic theology that would spark countless heresies in the millennia to come. Their obsession with recovering lost technologies stemmed directly from witnessing the wonders unveiled during Terra's reunification. For the Astra Militarum, the Imperial Army's successors, the wars provided a template for future conquests. Tactics honed in the ash wastes of Terra would be applied to countless worlds, while the regimental structure mirrored the diverse forces united under the Emperor's banner. The notion of human wave attacks, a grim necessity against Terran techno-barbarians, became a staple of Imperial military doctrine. The Inquisition, though formed after the Horus Heresy, drew inspiration from the clandestine operations conducted during the Unification. The ruthless efficiency with which the Emperor's agents rooted out opposition became a model for future Inquisitors. The precedent set by purging incompatible elements of Terran society would justify countless acts of extermination in the name of human purity. For the Adeptus Arbites, the wars underscored the importance of ironclad law enforcement. The chaotic patchwork of Terran justice systems, unified under Imperial rule, formed the basis of the Lex Imperialis. Judges modeled after the implacable enforcers who brought order to the hive cities would dispense harsh justice across the Imperium. The navigator houses saw their power cemented during this era. Their crucial role in guiding ships through the warp, essential for the coming Great Crusade, earned them unprecedented autonomy. This special status, granted during the Unification, would allow them to operate as a state within a state for millennia. For the Adeptus Administratum, the logistical challenges of unifying Terra provided valuable lessons. The bureaucratic apparatus developed to manage a world would be scaled up to govern a galaxy. Unfortunately, this also meant that the seeds of inefficiency and corruption planted during the Unification would blossom into the Byzantine bureaucracy of the far future. The Officio Assassinorum's roots in the Shadow Wars of Unification shaped its future operations. The art of eliminating key enemy leaders, perfected against Terran warlords, would be employed countless times to avert rebellions and settle succession crises across the Imperium. For the Adeptus Astra Telepathica, the horrors wrought by uncontrolled psychers during the wars justified their draconian methods. The Black Ships, first commissioned to scour Terra for psychic individuals, would become a dreaded sight across Imperial space, a direct legacy of the Unification era. The Space Marine Legions, successors to the Thunder Warriors, carried the torch of Terran unification to the stars. Each legion's unique culture, while shaped by their primarchs, bore traces of the diverse Terran cultures absorbed during the wars. The World Eater's berserker rage echoed the final frenzy of the Thunder Warriors, while the Imperial Fist's siege expertise grew from the grueling campaigns against Terran fortresses. For the ecclesiarchy, which would rise long after the unification, the wars presented a paradox. While officially denouncing the emperor's divinity, the miracles and superhuman feats of the unification period became the stuff of legend, fueling the very faith the emperor sought to quash. The Adeptus Custodes, the emperor's personal guard, were forged in the crucible of unification. Their unshakable loyalty and superhuman abilities, demonstrated time and again in the war's bloodiest battles, set them apart as living weapons beyond even the Space Marines. For Xenos races observing from afar, the Unification Wars served as a grim portent. The Eldar, in particular, recognized the echoes of their own past in humanity's violent ascension. Some Farseers foresaw the birth of a new tyrannical galactic power, their warnings falling on deaf ears among their fractured kind. The Orcs, ever eager for combat, found themselves drawn to the escalating conflicts on Terra. War bosses across the galaxy felt the psychic echoes of the mighty battles, their wachs, instinctively setting course for the promising wars brewing in the Sol system. For the insidious forces of chaos, the Unification Wars presented both opportunity and setback. The massive bloodshed and sorcerous conflicts empowered the ruinous powers, even as the Emperor's victories stemmed the tide of warp incursions on Terra. The seeds of corruption planted during this time would lay dormant, awaiting the right moment to sprout into heresy. The Tau, still in their Stone Age during this period, were indirectly influenced by the psychic ripples of unification. Some ethereals speak of visions from this time, of a giant golden figure that inspired their own dreams of unity, a ironic echo across the millennia. For the Tyranid hive mind, the psychic beacon of the Emperor, first kindled during the unification, would serve as a guiding light, drawing them inexorably towards the Milky Way. The groundwork for humanity's greatest external threat was inadvertently laid in its moment of triumph. Thus, the Unification Wars, while centered on Terra, sent ripples across time and space. Their legacy would be felt in every corner of the galaxy, shaping the destiny of humanity and the myriad species it would encounter in its relentless expansion across the stars. The choices made in those turbulent years on ancient Terra would echo through eternity, for better or worse. The Unification Wars serve as a rich tapestry of symbolism and themes that resonate throughout the Warhammer 40,000 universe. At its core, this conflict embodies the eternal struggle between order and chaos, a dichotomy that defines the Imperium's existence. The Emperor himself stands as a potent symbol of human potential and ambition. His superhuman abilities and grand vision represent the pinnacle of what humanity might achieve. Yet, this ideal carries a dark undercurrent, the price of progress often paid in blood and freedom. The Emperor's actions during the Unification raise questions about the morality of pursuing a greater good at any cost. Unity, the war's primary goal, emerges as a double-edged sword. While it brings strength and purpose to a fractured species, it also demands the sacrifice of diversity and individual identity. The Imperium's monolithic culture, born in this crucible, highlights the tension between collective security and personal freedom. The Thunder Warriors embody the theme of necessary evil. These proto-Astartes, instrumental in the early victories, represent the sometimes brutal measures required for progress. Their eventual purge serves as a grim reminder that tools of war, no matter how effective, can become liabilities in times of peace. Terra itself symbolizes humanity's fall and potential rebirth. Once a cradle of civilization, its transformation into a war-torn wasteland mirrors humanity's descent into barbarism. The planet's gradual unification under the Emperor represents the species' chance at redemption and renewed purpose. The warp, ever present in the background of the conflict, symbolizes the chaotic nature of the human psyche. The Emperor's efforts to control and harness psychic power reflect humanity's struggle to master its own nature. This battle between reason and emotion, order and instinct, plays out on a grand scale during the Unification. Technology in the Unification Wars serves as a metaphor for knowledge and its double-edged nature. Ancient weapons and devices, poorly understood yet immensely powerful, highlight the dangers of wielding forces beyond one's comprehension. The Emperor's regulation of technology underscores the theme of sacrificing progress for security. The various techno-barbarian states represent fragmented aspects of human nature. Their diverse cultures and ideologies, from gene cults to AI worshippers, showcase the myriad paths humanity might take in its evolution. Their absorption or destruction by the Imperium raises questions about the value of cultural diversity versus the need for species-wide unity. Transhumanism emerges as a central theme, embodied by the creation of the Space Marines. The enhancement of human capabilities through science blurs the line between man and post-human, challenging notions of what it means to be human in a hostile universe. The Imperial truth, with its emphasis on secular rationalism, symbolizes the conflict between faith and reason. Its imposition during the Unification foreshadows the Imperium's future struggles with religion, highlighting the enduring human need for belief systems even in an ostensibly rational society. Sacrifice permeates the narrative of the Unification Wars. From entire cultures erased to individuals giving their lives for the Emperor's vision, the conflict underscores the notion that progress often demands a heavy toll. This theme resonates throughout Imperial history, justifying countless atrocities in the name of humanity's survival. The Omnissiah, revered by the Mechanicum, represents the merging of spirituality and technology. This synthesis of faith and science, reluctantly tolerated by the Emperor, highlights the Imperium's pragmatic approach to governance, using existing belief systems when they serve the greater purpose. Genetic purity, a concept that gains prominence during the Unification, serves as a metaphor for humanity's fear of change and the unknown. The purges of mutants and aberrant strains reflect a broader theme of humanity defining itself in opposition to the other, a mentality that fuels the Imperium's xenophobia. The creation of the Primarchs symbolizes mankind's quest for perfection and the hubris such ambition entails. These demigods, intended to lead humanity to greatness, also carry the flaws of their creator, foreshadowing the internal conflicts that would nearly tear the Imperium apart. Terra's transformation into a planet-wide city represents the triumph of civilization over nature, but also the cost of such dominance. The loss of Terra's natural beauty serves as a warning about the price of progress and the potential for humanity to destroy its own cradle in pursuit of advancement. The Imperial Webway project, conceived during this era, symbolizes humanity's desire to overcome its limitations and claim mastery over the universe. Its ultimate failure highlights the theme of human ambition outstripping capability, a recurring motif in the Imperium's history. The Unification's focus on Terra, to the exclusion of other human-settled worlds, represents the theme of centralization versus decentralization. This Terran-centric view would shape the Imperium's governance for millennia, leading to both stability and stagnation. Lastly, the notion of a golden age, both the one lost to history and the one promised by the Emperor, serves as a powerful motivating force. It embodies humanity's tendency to idealize the past and future while struggling with the harsh realities of the present, a theme that resonates throughout Imperial culture. These symbols and themes, born in the fires of Unification, would echo across the millennia of Imperial rule. They form the bedrock of the Imperium's philosophy, shaping its actions and justifying its excesses. In exploring these concepts, we gain insight not just into the Warhammer 40,000 universe, but into the broader human condition, our struggles with power, identity, and the eternal quest for purpose in a vast and uncaring cosmos. The Unification Wars stand as a testament to humanity's resilience and ambition, yet they also serve as a cautionary tale about the costs of progress. In examining this pivotal period, we're confronted with challenging questions about the nature of leadership, the price of unity, and the moral compromises made in pursuit of a greater good. One can't help but marvel at the sheer scale of the Emperor's vision. To take a fragmented, war-torn world and forge it into the foundation of a galactic empire is no small feat. The ambition behind this endeavor speaks to the best of human potential, our ability to dream big and work towards seemingly impossible goals. Yet, this admiration is tempered by the methods employed to achieve this unity. The Emperor's approach to unification raises uncomfortable parallels with totalitarian regimes throughout human history. The suppression of diverse cultures, the enforcement of a single state-sanctioned ideology, and the ruthless elimination of opposition are hallmarks of authoritarian rule. It begs the question, can a truly benevolent dictatorship exist, even when led by a supposedly infallible being? The creation of transhuman warriors, first the Thunder Warriors, then the Space Marines, presents an ethical quandary. On one hand, these enhanced soldiers were necessary to overcome the myriad threats facing humanity. On the other, they represent a fundamental alteration of the human form, blurring the lines of what it means to be human. This opens up debates about transhumanism and the lengths to which we should go to ensure our species' survival. The treatment of psychers during this period is particularly troubling. While the dangers posed by untrained psychic individuals were real, the wholesale roundup and exploitation of these people set a dangerous precedent. It reflects a utilitarian approach to governance, where individuals are valued primarily for their usefulness to the state, rather than their inherent worth as human beings. One can't discuss the Unification Wars without addressing the imperial truth. The Emperor's attempt to create a purely secular society, free from the trappings of religion, is an intriguing experiment. It raises questions about the role of faith in human society and whether it's truly possible, or desirable, to eliminate the human tendency towards belief in higher powers. The eventual failure of this policy, as seen in the rise of the imperial cult, suggests that perhaps the Emperor underestimated humanity's deep-seated need for spiritual meaning. The alliance with the Mechanicum of Mars represents a pragmatic but problematic compromise. By allowing the tech priests to maintain their religious practices, the Emperor tacitly undermined his own secular ideology. This decision, while necessary for accessing Mars's technological resources, planted the seeds for future ideological conflicts within the Imperium. It serves as a reminder that even the most carefully crafted plans often require compromises that can have far-reaching consequences. The environmental devastation wrought upon Terra during the wars is a somber reflection of humanity's impact on its homeworld. The transformation of Earth into a planet-wide cityscape, while necessary for supporting its vast population, came at the cost of its natural beauty and biodiversity. This serves as a poignant metaphor for the broader theme of progress versus preservation that runs throughout human history. One of the most troubling aspects of the Unification Wars is the concept of acceptable losses. The sheer number of human lives sacrificed in pursuit of unity is staggering. While one could argue that these deaths prevented even greater loss of life in the long run, it raises moral questions about the value we place on individual lives versus the abstract notion of the greater good. The Emperor's foresight in preparing for a Galactic Crusade, even before Terra was fully unified, speaks to the scale of his ambition. However, it also highlights a potentially problematic aspect of his rule, the focus on expansion and conquest rather than consolidation and rebuilding. One wonders if a longer period of peace and recovery on Terra might have led to a more stable foundation for the Imperium. The purge of the Thunder Warriors serves as a chilling reminder of the Emperor's ruthlessness. These warriors, who fought loyally to unify Terra, were discarded once they were no longer useful. This event foreshadows the Imperium's often callous treatment of its servants, valuing them only as long as they serve their purpose. It's a grim reflection of the idea that in the eyes of the state, individuals are expendable. The Unification Wars also highlight the cyclical nature of human history. The fall of Terra into warring factions following the Age of Strife, only to be reunified under a powerful leader, mirrors patterns we've seen throughout our own history. It raises questions about whether humanity is doomed to repeat cycles of unity and fragmentation, or if we can break this cycle and achieve lasting peace. Ultimately, the Unification Wars represent a pivotal moment where humanity chose a path of militant unity over diversity and individual freedom. While this decision arguably ensured the species' survival in a hostile galaxy, it came at a tremendous cost. The Imperium born from these wars is a behemoth capable of incredible feats, but also of unspeakable cruelties. As we reflect on this era, we're left to ponder, was the price of unification too high? Could a more benevolent approach have achieved the same ends? Or was the brutality of the Unification Wars a necessary evil in an uncaring universe? These questions, much like the Imperium itself, have no easy answers. They continue to fuel debates among fans and serve as a mirror through which we can examine our own society's struggles with unity, diversity, and the cost of progress. Life during the Unification Wars was a crucible of extremes, where hope and despair intertwined in the shadows of falling empires and rising monoliths. For the common folk of Terra, each day brought new challenges and uncertainties. In the war-torn hive cities, families huddled in the darkness of lower levels, their lives a constant struggle for sustenance and safety. The thunder of distant battles became a grim lullaby, punctuated by the screams of strange weapons that lit up the toxic skies. Yet amidst the chaos, sparks of humanity's resilience shone through. Underground markets flourished, trading salvaged tech and hoarded supplies. Makeshift schools taught children not just survival skills, but whispered legends of humanity's former glory. In secret corners, defiant artists crafted works that captured the spirit of a world in flux, their creations a testament to the enduring human spirit. As the Emperor's forces advanced, life changed dramatically for those brought under the Aquila's shadow. For many, it meant a sudden influx of resources and a semblance of stability they hadn't known in generations. Imperial medical teams battled plagues that had ravaged populations for centuries, while newly established administrative outposts brought the promise of order to anarchic regions. However, this new order came at a price. Ancient traditions and local identities, nurtured over millennia of isolation, were swiftly suppressed in favor of the monolithic imperial culture. Those who clung to old ways found themselves at odds with the regime's vision of a unified humanity. The remembrancers tasked with recording this tumultuous era walked a fine line between documentation and propaganda. In the factories and forges that sprung up in the wake of conquest, a new working class emerged. Toiling endlessly to fuel the Emperor's war machine, these laborers found purpose in the promise of a brighter future for their descendants. The glimpses they caught of transhuman warriors and impossibly advanced war machines fed tales of awe that would evolve into the roots of imperial mythology. For the psychers of Terra, the Unification brought a harsh new reality. Once revered or feared as shamans and witches, they now faced the black ships and the unknown fate that awaited them in service to the Imperium. Their departure left communities grappling with a mix of relief and loss, forever altering humanity's relationship with its psychic potential. As the wars drew to a close, a palpable sense of anticipation filled the air. The Emperor's gaze turned to the stars, and with it, the dreams of trillions. Children born in the final days of the Unification would grow up hearing tales not of past glories, but of future conquests waiting among distant suns. In the end, the Unification Wars represented more than just a military campaign. They were the forge in which the fate of our species was hammered into new shapes, for better or worse. As the dust settled on the battlefields of ancient Terra, humanity stood on the precipice of a new age, one that would see it reach for the very stars themselves, armed with the terrible lessons and hard-won unity of its birthworld. The Unification Wars passed into legend, but their legacy would echo through the chambers of imperial history for millennia to come. In the grim darkness of the far future, the light of that distant era continues to cast long shadows, shaping the destiny of humanity among the stars.